Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Beacon Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I am Reverend Dr. Robin Tanner. I'm one of the co-ministers at Beacon, and my goodness, what a trio we have this morning. There was some raucous laughter just moments before we went live. Do y'all want to introduce yourselves and say hi?
Thank you, Robin. My name is Tuli Patel. I have the honor of being your executive director as well as the lead for Lifespan Ministry team. So happy to be here with all of you. And
I'm Adam Gonerman. I'm a member of your board, and I'm glad to be here.
Really glad to have you both. Just a minute ago, I had our 2-year-old Benjamin on our lap, and one of our twins, Kirk, was at the door, which got me thinking, Tuli, about lifespan, and particularly about our children and our youth. As a household who has 3 children enrolled in the program, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in lifespan and how things are going?
thank you for asking, Robin. Yes, lots of people have been saying they're really missing the kids and youth because they don't get to see them anymore. So lifespan is the term we use for pre-K through 12th grade, a loose descriptive term of the programming we do for them. And our small group started last Sunday, that is on the 13th. And I really was terrified that nobody would come, but the kids came. And so we had a fantastic showing, meeting virtually from pre-K through 7th grade, and then 8th graders meet for their Our Whole Life Sexuality Education program in the sanctuary. Windows open, masks on, everybody's to sign a special permission slip. And the youth group also gathers on the premises, very briefly in the building, and then they go outside. And they're having a great time, and they do miss seeing all of you and being with you all. So they're doing well, and we're excited to bring back our small groups next Sunday on the 27th at 1 o'clock. And then at 4 o'clock, we have a very, very special treat. We are gathering for a brief children's chapel in the sanctuary. Again, I'm sorry, limited numbers, special permission slip, but watch your communications for those details. That's what's happening from the world of Lifespan.
Thanks so much, Dr. Tuli. I consider you like my resident child education expert, and I really appreciate that you still take my calls at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, knowing it's probably a problem that I'm having with the kids. Well, also, folks, we want to draw attention that today's a little special. The service is going to be shorter because we do have this water ceremony taking place at 1 p.m., either virtually or in one of 5 locations with masks and social distancing. And all of the details will be at the very end of the service on a couple of slides. So make sure you tune in all the way to the end. Also, on the 30th of this month, which is a Wednesday at noon, we're going to be picking up with our next barn program, the Beacon Arts Room at noon. And this month, we are going to be having some cooking, I think, with Danny DiGiacomo Singh. And I don't know about you all, but it has been one heck of a year. It has also been one heck of a week. And so I am finding some of those essential practices like cooking, like getting a couple minutes outside to really be important for me. Adam, what are you finding that's helping to sustain you, helping to nourish you? What's going on in your life?
Well, I'm trying to keep myself busy. I'm starting a new job this week. Everybody knows that's talked to me in any of our, touch points that I have a garden that I've been taking care of, and yeah, and I've also started back to seminary, so I'm working on returning to ministry.
As a Unitarian Universalist?
Yes.
Just all in the details, friends. Couple of pro tips. Always ask the detail question. That's wonderful, Adam. And we're really glad to have you on the Board of Trustees as well, and in the conversation today. Is there anything happening with the board that you want folks to be aware of and connected to?
Well, I've only been on the board since, I believe, July. It's been a very good experience so far, and we're working on the covenant with the congregation, and we have, I think, a vote coming up on that sometime, but we're discussing that and sharing that, and information will be forthcoming.
Great, thanks, Adam. Well, it is almost time to start our service, but I would be remiss if I did not note the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. just really a titan, if you will, of a figure in both injustice, but it really also personally inspired so many. So I have a little poem that I thought I would share, not one that I wrote. It's by May Sarton, called Now Voyager, to kind of send us into a reflection on Justice Ginsburg's life, and also the true sentiment that her life may be a blessing. Now, Voyager, lay here your dazzled head. Come back to earth from air, be nourished, not with that light on light, but with this bread. Here, close to earth, be cherished, mortal heart. Hold your way deep as roots push rocks apart to bring the spurt of green up from the dark. Where music thundered, let the mind be still. Where the will triumph, let there be no will. What light revealed, now let the dark fulfill. Here, close to earth, the deeper pulse is stirred. Here, where no wings rush and no sudden bird, but only heartbeat upon beat is heard. Here, let the fiery burden be all spilled, the passionate voice at last be calmed and stilled, and the long yearning of the blood fulfilled. Now, Voyager, come home to rest. Here on the long lost country of earth's breast, lay down the fiery vision and be blessed, be blessed. So there's been lots of conversation and vigils and beautiful postings. And I think what is also important to me is that we not deify Justice Ginsburg, because in so doing, we also, I think, give up the call that's upon us to take up the work, and we make her almost superhuman and an impossible person to model after. And yet she was very human. Tuli, you were just telling a pretty enjoyable story, and I don't know if you want to share that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking, Robin. So I know somebody who clerked for her, and he's posted on Twitter that, we make so much of her official work, and as Robin said, what a titan she was. And we forget how very human she was, how caring she was, how compassionate she was. And he posts on Twitter of a time when he'd first had his kid and he was having trouble finding daycare. And all the other clerks knew about it, and she got wind of it. And so she said, what's going on? And he, shared his problems. And she marched down to the Georgetown University daycare and said, I'm Justice Ginsburg, and this is my clerk, and he needs a spot for his kid. And so they were all like, oh, yes, Justice Ginsburg, right away, Justice Ginsburg. So just to show that she was also a deeply caring human being and who paid attention to the details and understood the struggles of parents.
I love that. I love that story. I could use a Justice Ginsburg some days in my corner. I'm sure some others could too. So as we begin our service, I do want us in the midst of grief to remember that in Unitarian Universalism, we're also called to this practice of the celebration of life. So our services, when we honor one who's died, are both a memorial, a remembering, and they're also a celebration of the lessons learned, of the work and the call taken up, of the incredible light that was cast by someone's life. And so this day, in the midst of our grieving, I hope that we can yet rejoice that Justice Ginsburg lived, and rejoice at the way in which she lived, and rejoice in the lessons that she has given us. And with that, I think it's time to begin. To indeed, beloved, enter, rejoice, and come in.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song.
morning. I'm Dan Bloomfield.
And I'm Betsy True. This morning, we light our home chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, with these words.
We light this chalice for the light of truth and reality,
The warmth of love and compassion.
and the fire of commitment and promise.
We light this symbol of our faith as we gather together.
I have a story to tell about water or pani. Pani is the word for water in Hindi, Urdu, Nepali, and also in many other South Asian languages. Once there was a water molecule named pani. Pani was very special. You see, pani knew and continues to know practically everything. When the world was nothing but a swirling pot of amino acids, Pani met the first little protozoa. She was so cute. Pani named her Polly. When the dinosaurs came into being, Pani was lapped up by a very thirsty brontosaurus named Billy. Pani had so much fun bouncing in Billy's body, refreshing each and every cell, until suddenly Pani landed in the soil of what is now Colorado. Pani got picked up into the clouds and sent down in a storm to the mighty Mississippi. Out from the Mississippi, Pani sailed in the Gulf of Mexico, and the fierce winds carried him all the way over to North Africa, where he watched the first humans walk. Pani sizzled on fires in Morocco and went back up into the air. Pani rained down on a soldier's blade in France and was sad to see the war there. He was brought to the forehead of a baby who became, he was told, Queen Elizabeth. She smiled as he rolled across her forehead. Pani waited in a swamp in the southern United States for months until he clung to the dress of a woman named Harriet, leading the way to freedom. A man named Cesar guzzled up Pani as he spoke to hundreds of farmers under the scorching sun. And one day, ever so quietly, Pani traveled through pipes and plants and then out of a tap into a glass just like the one you see here. Pani knows the world. He knows some of the worst. He knows some of the best. And still, after all this time, when Pani rides a wave or gets carried off in a breeze or sits so still in a lake he almost can't tell where he ends and the next friend begins, still, after all this time, even here at a water communion, seeing all this life, Pani gets that tingling sense of wow, of wonder, to still be here on this blue boat home.
One of our Unitarian Universalist faith sources is Judaism. Jewish teachings, like science, poetry, personal experience, and nature, call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. As we move into the days of awe that begin the Jewish High Holy Days, I find myself, like many of our Jewish and Jewish UU siblings, immersed in contemplation and self-examination. What if we were to pick one thing and focus on changing it for the better? How much sweeter would our relationships be if we measured the words we said to our children and friends? When I look up into the sky and see the haze across the sun, I feel connected to the communities out west currently battling raging wildfires. Could I make my environmental footprint smaller? When I turn on the TV and hear stories of additional violence against Black and brown bodies, another police shooting, allegations of non-consensual hysterectomies on immigrant detainees. As someone who is a have, can I think about the issues that are important to those who have not when I go to the ballot box? And if all the changes we as individuals were to take effect were taken together, how impressive would the results be? I think we'd be much likely to approach next year's days of awe thinking, here I am again. What if we considered every candle lighting as a reminder of those personal changes? A reminder like this can be helpful as we urge ourselves towards the next day, week, or even year. Because whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we are connected to all other peoples and to the universe as an interacted, interrelated whole. And we have a shared responsibility to create a better place to dwell and leave for our children and their children. So I light this candle as a reminder to change something, internally or externally, today. This morning's candle of witness is in honor of another beloved lost in the struggle for racial justice, Samuel David Mallard. Samuel David Mallard was a happy child who was loved by his family. He was raised in the church and played Little League Baseball. Samuel graduated high school in 2019, and at the time of his death, he was only 19 years old. Samuel was killed on January 17th in Powder Springs, Georgia. May these lights burn brightly in our bodies as we work towards a future where Black lives matter, where our climate matters, where our faith matters. In our complicated and difficult world, let us seize every opportunity for change, as Rosh Hashanah calls us to, taking chance to examine the possibilities and together move closer to the life we believe in, the life we truly want to live, where all humanity and the planet we share are cared for and valued unequivocally. With this vision in our hearts and minds, we light candles this morning.
Spirit of life,
still, small voice within each and all.
God of abundant love, we come together with songs of praise. We come together for a moment of stillness and silence. We come together in mournful lamentation.
Each from a different point on the map.
Each from an often fleeting season of life.
Each from our emerging identities.
Each from our ever-evolving beliefs.
We come together to give voice to our struggles, our sorrows, our outrage.
The loss of yet another person we love.
The fear we experience with each new storm.
And every burning fire.
Holding broken promises and bruised feelings.
We lift up our voices so that with each breath our bodies may know true healing.
We come together to call forth the power of creation within each of us and all around us.
Witnessed in the spark of a match.
In every droplet of cleansing water.
In the joining of hands and hearts. We call forth our creative potential so that when we close our eyes, our minds may conceive new possibilities for our shared future.
And yes, we come together to rejoice with thanksgiving for those flashes of compassion, repair, and hope.
When we gain wisdom from our hard-won experiences.
When we find the courage to face our fears.
When we uncover hidden strengths in our vulnerability.
We center joy so that with open hearts we may become rooted in our strength, our courage, our wisdom.
Let our lone voices this day join together in this song of prayer, so that we may witness our seemingly solitary struggles, our singular creations, and our particular joys as one of many singers in this, the great chorus of life. Let the congregation say,
Amen.
Blessed be.
Ashe. Ashe.
This week, beloved, a betta fish proved to be my trapdoor. You know the basement of your despair, the dumpster fire of 2020? And then someone pulls the lever and you realize there's lower. The betta fish that we had gotten weeks into the pandemic when the last fish in our tank died and we couldn't bear one more day of walking by that empty tank. And so in late March, I gloved up, put the mask on, walked past the tanks of tetras and goldfish straight to the warrior fish, and found this blue shimmering star, this beautiful fish, and lifted him up. He became our pandemic mascot, if you will. Jarrell, our 14-year-old, upon seeing the beautiful blue shimmering color, named him Azul, or blue in Spanish, and he was nicknamed by Benjamin, the 2-year-old, Zuli. And then this week came. With fires in 13 states and waters rising in the southeast, apocalyptic scenes that have been forecasted by decades of scientists, the climate crisis in full rush upon us. And deaths in my circle of beloved and yours too, diagnoses and struggle and difficulty, pain upon pain.
The uprising, continuing, creative, protesting, and yet the system's clamping down. There I was. When Jarell called me and said something's wrong with Zuli, I flew down the stairs, studying the tank. And Zuli just kept floating to the bottom, sinking, unable to sustain a swim. Well, I said, by daylight we'll know if he thrives or is dead. But that was just the thing. Daylight came and we didn't know. He wasn't better, he wasn't worse, he was in some liminal space. This went on day after day. I hadn't anticipated the in-between. Was he in pain? Did fish have pain? Suddenly our family was plunged into all sorts of ethical dilemmas. I remembered when my good friend's husband died suddenly after just tripping on a sidewalk. His husband decided to donate his organs, and there we were saying goodbye in an operating room. I remember thinking, this is impossible to say goodbye. And my friend led us in a ritual. Led us in these words, we come from the goddess, and to her we shall return, like a drop of rain in the ocean. With each death I've said I can't, but I can. Add a name to a candle or a stone, study the tank, companion the warriors, keep swimming. I said I can't imagine as the news breaks, but I can. In the haze of the day, the truth of the prophecies emerge, and the clarity of the times in which we are, and the essential spiritual act of renewing the promise. Yesterday, we discovered Zuli in the plastic sea anemone that is suctioned to the side of the tank. We feared death, and so I got the net to scoop him out, but then he started moving furiously. He was using the sea anemone to hold him and heal him, to keep himself from sinking to the bottom. There he was in the plastic sea anemone, one good fin, one more day, still shimmering. This weekend is Rosh Hashanah, or the head of the new year. It's a time of righting wrongs, of seeking oneness and community, of welcoming the new, of beginning again, the head of the new year, the first signal of the birth of the new year, the final push for life. If you've ever witnessed a birth or gone through the process of labor yourself, you know that the moments before a child is born, those last few moments are often the most chaotic. The transitional space when everything is at stake. Oftentimes in this season of the high holy days, the story of Moses is told. Moses, whose very name means drawn from the waters, this baby infant prophet drawn from the peril and the promise of the Nile. So I am searching these days for what is drawn out of the water, as the teaching, as the Midrash goes, from the waters of birth, drawn out from the waters of the Nile, drawn, a prophet, drawn out of slavery into Exodus, a people drawn from the Red Sea to the Promised Land. Remembering that it is moments before the birth of a people, before the liberation, that all is chaos. The final threshold filled with the fullness of life and death. We come to water ceremony this year, unlike the years before. Water ceremony, this ritual born at a women's convocation where each woman brought a vessel of water to be poured into a common container.
a ritual moving us from I to us, to all of us, nothing about us without us. A ritual that reminds us too, beloved, of the liminal spaces, of the threshold, of the process of change to be drawn from the waters, the places where my water merges into the collective. We come from the goddess, we are taught, from love, from she, from he, from they, and to them we shall return. And so before the birth, before the new year, before the prophet is drawn from the waters, there is a moment when some ones must decide to renew the promise, to lean toward love or away. Today, Tuli lives. One day, he will not. But today he's got one good fin, a whole lot of shimmer, and a little bit of swim. Today he lives. Today, beloved, we might be honestly suction cupped to the side of a tank, one good fin threatening to sink at any moment, out of the blue, out of the azul, drawn from the waters, and this small creature, without any reckoning of his act, gifts a calling to return to the waters, to the first promise, the promise made even before breath inhabited our lungs, when we still swam of the waters, the rhythm that was before breath, when voices cushioned the soul. This creature, with no reckoning of their act, calls us to that promise when a single cell divided and magnified the light, and you and we became the yearnings of ancient ones and the ancestors of our children's children. Drawn from the waters, that promise to lean toward love, until the day that very love calls us home. But this day is not that day. This day, beloved, remember the promise. This day we swim, beloved. This day we are drawn, are at the edge of the birth. This day we lean toward love. This day we swim, we shimmer, we fight on.
What does a flaming chalice and a get out the vote postcard have in common? Well, as Unitarian Universalists, we uphold principles, promises that we make to one another about how we are going to live in the world. And one of those promises upholds democracy. And so as we prepare for an election season, we Unitarian Universalists, not only at Beacon, but throughout the country, have been sending postcards with the line, your vote is your voice and your power. We are reaching out to folks and inviting them to reclaim their power through the use of democracy, through the use of their vote, urging them to find a way to vote this season. Last night, I was at the Social Justice Coordinating Team meeting with Reverend Robin, and I was so inspired by our UU the Vote campaign. Our congregation has sent out hundreds, if not thousands, of postcards. We have team members that are texting folks, inviting them, showing them how they can vote. We have people who are on calling banks, inviting people to vote. There are so many ways in which we are living out our principle of democracy. And I was inspired. I know that there's a lot of fear out there right now, but in that moment, all I could feel was inspiration. That's the impact that Beacon and Unitarian Universalism has on the world. We center on our values like democracy and people using their voice to be heard. We center on those principles. We live out of them instead of fear. Communities like ours have an impact each and every day in our lives and in the world. And so this day, we invite you to invest in our community, to contribute to the many ways that we are slowly and quickly changing the world for the better, grounding our lives and our country in the power of democracy. So in a minute, you will be invited to give to this community whose mission is to be radically inclusive, to feed the human spirit, and to heal the world. And in this season, we do so with our vote. Thanks to all of you who have made democracy a value in our country again.
Seven, 8.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can
And so we have been called this day to shimmer, to swim, to shine on from story and song. I hope you have heard the wisdom both of the ages as well as the fierce urgency of now. We invite you this day to join us at 1 p.m. Eastern, either in a virtual water ceremony or in one of our 5 locations, socially distanced, to come take small vessels of water, tap water, river water, rainwater, wherever you've got some water, and pour it into a common vessel. Information will appear soon on your screen. Indeed, through ritual, through our very lives, may we be the teaching of leaning and living toward the love that holds all, heals all, and calls us on to liberation. So may it be, beloved. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe.